Lewis Hamilton has understandably been hit hard by his 2021 Formula 1 Championship defeat. The 7-time world champion missed out on another title after being overtaken on the final lap in Abu Dhabi by Max Verstappen in a controversial conclusion created by how a late safety car period was handled. Now Hamilton's team boss Toto Wolff has said his driver is disillusioned, and Wolff's reluctance to speak definitively about Hamilton's future has raised questions about whether Hamilton could decide to just walk away from F1. Apart from a brief television appearance immediately after the race, in which he congratulated Verstappen and thanked his team, Hamilton hasn't had any media engagements or commented publicly since the season finale. He has been pictured at Windsor Castle receiving his knighthood and has since returned to Mercedes team headquarters as well. But Hamilton was absent from the FIA's mandatory end-of-season prize-giving ceremony this week, with Toto Wolff also skipping the Paris gala in support. So it's clear that Mercedes and Hamilton are deeply hurt by what happened in Abu Dhabi and where their anger is being directed. We've made a few videos on this subject by now, so we won't go into massive detail about the events of the race. The key context is that Hamilton was denied the victory and the championship because the race should have ended under caution if the safety car period had been handled in the manner prescribed by the rules. Hamilton said on his team radio moments before taking the checkered flag that the race had been manipulated and was pictured sitting in his car for 2 full minutes post-race as he contemplated what had happened. Mercedes challenged this outcome with a protest that was rejected by the stewards. It intended to appeal that steward's verdict with the FIA's International Court, but then decided to drop that legal challenge together with Hamilton. We'll get into why Mercedes felt backed into a corner on that later in this video, but Wolff has shed further light on the clear sense of betrayal Hamilton has felt around Sunday's finish. During a lengthy call with media after it was announced Mercedes had dropped its appeal, Wolff was asked whether there's any danger of Hamilton being disillusioned with F1 and not seeing out his Mercedes contract.
Lewis and I are disillusioned at the moment. We're not disillusioned of the sport. We love the sport with every bone in our body, and we love it because because the stopwatch never lies. But if we break that fundamental principle of sporting fairness and authenticity of the sport, that suddenly the stopwatch doesn't become relevant anymore because we are exposed to random decision making, that is clear that you may fall out of love with that you start to question if all the work that you have been putting in, all the sweat, tears and blood can actually be demonstrated in terms of bringing the best of possible performances on track, because it can be taken away randomly. So it's going to take a long time for us to digest what has happened on Sunday. I don't think we will ever come over it. That's not possible, and certainly not him as a driver. I would very much hope that the two of us and the rest of the team, we can work through the events. We can, with the FIA together and with F1, utilize the situation to improve the sport going forward. But he will never overcome the pain and the distress that was caused on Sunday.
Wolff has made it clear that Hamilton is seriously hurt by what happened in Abu Dhabi, especially as Hamilton prides himself on being a principled person and racing driver. That makes what happened so difficult for him to stomach. According to Wolff, Hamilton will conclude that he needs to continue in F1 because he's still performing at such a high level. Hamilton has a contract with Mercedes that runs until the end of 2023 and will be joined next year by George Russell as Mercedes begins to plan for a future without its superstar driver. So theoretically, Hamilton will stay with Mercedes until at least the time he's approaching his 39th birthday. Yes, he's missed out on a record-breaking 8th title, but it was through no fault of his own, and it's clear he's still at the peak of his powers. Hamilton should have ended the year with 9 wins, and his form at crunch time in the title battle was superb. So his 2021 performances don't really have a bearing here. It comes down to what he wants to do, and that could be swayed by whether Hamilton has faith in the system around him.
I'm in a daily dialogue with him, but also respect that there is not a lot to talk at the moment. Each of us copes in their own way with the feelings that we have at the moment. And I just need to do the utmost that I can to help him to overcome these imminent feelings that he has in order for him to return stronger, or to return strong with a love of the sport and trust in the decision-making of the sport next year. And we wish very much that this would be the case.
We're going to pause this video just for a moment to say thank you for watching, and thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the race so far. If you're enjoying this video, please hit the thumbs up button, and if you're not already part of our community, then press subscribe to change that as well. It really makes a big difference to us, and we'd love to have you back for more videos in the future. Returning to the subject of Mercedes and Hamilton's discontent, it's worth pointing out that this is not a case of them being sore losers, because they don't have any hard feelings towards Verstappen for what happened. Wolff was keen to credit Verstappen for winning the title in Hamilton's place, and even though we believe that Hamilton and Mercedes were wronged, it's not Verstappen's fault, and it shouldn't detract from the quality of his own season. For what it's worth, Verstappen expects Hamilton to stay on to chase an 8th championship. The Red Bull driver said at the FIA's prize-giving ceremony that he understands the pain of losing the championship on the final lap. But as Hamilton put together such a strong season, with the two drivers sharing the top 2 positions 14 times in 22 races, Verstappen reckons Hamilton should stick around. He said, "I can understand that the first few days after a race like that, you're not happy. But you should also understand this is racing at the end of the day, and these things can happen to you. I think he should just look back at what he has achieved already. That should give him a lot of comfort, and should also be that drive to just keep on going, because he is still trying to challenge for that 8th title, and he can do that again next year, so I don't see any reason to give up or stop now." Mercedes found itself effectively facing a lose-lose situation as it deliberated on legal action following the season finale. And the team's anger and frustration as it has come to terms with that has been clear to see. This doesn't make sense to a part of Hamilton's fan base that is very angry. Even Wolff and Mercedes have been targeted since dropping the appeal, facing criticism and accusations that the team is now complicit in Hamilton's unjust defeat. But there are 2 important things to consider. The first is that the FIA has sole authority over sporting issues within F1, so there is no avenue for external legal action unless there was a non-sporting crime committed. Tied to that is why the Court of Arbitration for Sport, or CAS, was not an option. CAS only has a very specific remit within Formula 1. It's responsible for handling any issues relating to doping. The second thing is that the FIA statutes don't seem to offer any route to alter the race result in a way that would have made Hamilton the winner, not Verstappen. It's easy to argue you should just take the classification from the penultimate lap, but if there's no mechanism to do that, it's going to fall on deaf ears. Especially as the FIA would have wanted to avoid an unprecedented ruling at all costs. So Mercedes faced a 2-part problem. An FIA-appointed panel would be judging the FIA steward's verdict that defended the FIA race director. And even if that panel ruled against the FIA, it would almost certainly not change the outcome of the result and the championship. That left Mercedes in the morally correct position, and with a legal case that Wolff said was almost guaranteed to win in a normal courtroom, yet still feeling there was no point committing to the appeal. It was either going to lose, or whatever win was on the table would not be a real win.
As I said before, there's a difference between being right and obtaining justice. And I don't think that at the moment we are set up in terms of our governance to end up in a situation that would have given us a remedy, that would have reinstalled a result that was taken away from Lewis before the last lap of the race. And that's why, heavy-hearted, we have decided not to appeal, because we wouldn't have gotten the result back. Now, I think we have the right tools in hand to make sure that the decision-making going forward is better. And we will be holding the FIA and the decision makers accountable for making the sport more robust and the decision making more robust and more consistent.
The diplomacy at play here will not appease everyone, but Mercedes found itself in an unenviable position and is searching for something positive to take away from what's happened. What F1 stakeholders cannot do now is think they've got away lightly from such a controversy. Mercedes has made it very clear how deeply upset both the team and Hamilton are. Even if Hamilton continues racing as expected, it seems F1 and its greatest ambassador are a long way from reconciliation.